Hello, I'm Petru and you are watching WellCode, and we're back with another interview. I'm together with Katie here, who works at
NASA JPL.
Yeah, so Katie works for NASA, which is really cool. NASA is one of my favorite places because it helps humanity evolve, and it's at the edge of progress and the edge of science. But before going into that and before showing you how you can get to work there, let's know you more. So what's your story? What were you doing before learning how to write code? What were your passion? How were you as a kid?
So I grew up kind of in the Chicago area in Illinois, and I actually did kind of have a sciencey childhood. My parents are both into science, and I grew up doing science experiments and looking through a telescope, and my dad would make me do math problems in the summer, like all kids like to do in the summer.
Yeah, I love because my father is also, he's a math teacher, and he also made me do math, but I was terrible at it. So he was really good at math, and I don't think he had the patience to just slow down and explain me everything and let me think, because I think he had high expectations. So I had this experience of doing math, and I avoided math because of that.
Oh, really?
Do you like math?
Yeah, I love math.
Did you like that when you were doing it during the summer?
No, not really. But you know, like when you're a child, you hate everything that your parents make you do, and then you grow up and realize how much you appreciate it. Because that's kind of what sent me spiraling down like the path I'm going down. So. Yeah. And
did you do any coding during school, or how did you discover that you have those computers and you can actually tell them what to do?
So when I was really young, like 3rd or 4th grade, I was actually involved in first Lego League robotics. Okay. And that's when I first started kind of coding. And that's like really simple code, but it's still like kind of dipping your toe in the water, I guess. And also when I was younger, I used to like playing using Scratch software. I don't know if you've ever used that. Yeah. But it's fun. It's pretty easy to play with. But and then in high school, I took one coding class my senior year because I thought I'd enjoy it, but I ended up not liking it as much as I thought. I was kind of wary about going into coding. But that kind of obviously changed once I got to college.
And what was the class in high school about?
It was just like basic C programming.
C?
Yeah. Okay. Just wasn't taught too well. It was like the first time it was ever being taught by a new teacher who didn't have a coding background. Yeah, so.
Okay, and then you went to college. How did you choose the college? What were the different factors that influenced your decision?
Yeah, so I ended up going to Milwaukee School of Engineering in Wisconsin. But I was actually kind of looking for smaller colleges because I like the small school feel. I didn't want to like blend in with 80,000 people. So I was purely looking at small colleges, particularly just for engineering, which I mean, I'd recommend that if you're looking for colleges, like look broader than I did. But yeah, so I ended up just settling on MSOE because it's kind of close to home, and both of my parents went there. So. And I got a lot of scholarships.
Okay, so you're not that typical American student who gets lots of loans and goes to a top school and then he has to work for, I don't know, 5 years to pay. Yeah. So that's I have that going for me. Okay, and what happened in college? So you were in college, you weren't focused on coding. Before going into college, and then you went there, and what changed?
So I think kind of what changed for me was getting into embedded systems programming, which is, you know, programming actual hardware. And I ended up having so much fun with it, like being able to solve logic problems and just kind of find a new way to do something or do something that nobody else has done before. Can you provide more examples for the people who don't have any background in embedded systems? Yeah, so like embedded systems could be pretty much anything. One example I guess I'd have is last year using a Texas Instruments board, which can cause Texas Instruments. Okay. It's a board called MSP 432. It's like $12. I got this board and I ended up getting tons of extra parts and wires and building a robot. Yeah, I remember one of my friends used to program a robot who
was taking paper from the floor and just taking it to trash. Okay, so was this thing mandatory or was like a side project after classes?
So I actually ended up taking a robotics class last year, and the basic kind of assignment was create a robot, like a SumoBot, that could be in a ring, like about 3 feet in diameter, and it could fight another robot and like be able to push it out, detect it, and basically it's like a battle to the death. And so that was like a basic project. But I ended up getting so excited and so like taken away with it. I ended up adding like so much extra functionality that wasn't needed just because it was a lot of fun. And I think that's where I first like kind of like, or not first, but that's where I really found a lot of creativity in like what you do.
Okay, that's cool. And how did you decide, oh, I'm gonna go and work for NASA, I'm gonna pursue that?
Actually, so it's been like my childhood dream to work for NASA. Which is the, like, you know, I'm sure everyone says that, like, oh, I want to be an astronaut when I grow up. But, like, I really wanted to be an astronaut when I grew up. And, like, even as a kid, me and my dad would collect images from the Hubble telescope. And I had a scrapbook of images from the Hubble telescope.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, a scrapbook of pictures of my family.
Yeah, I don't think that everyone wants to be an astronaut. For example, I was scared just being there alone and just having the stars and that's it. So
yeah,
it was pretty unique. Okay, so you already knew that you would be interested in doing that, and how did you apply? What was the process? What were the more practical things that you needed to do in order to get accepted?
Yeah, so I did kind of an unusual route, which is I applied online for JPL. And usually people who get into JPL, they network. So like you try to meet somebody or you send emails, like you kind of scout people out in departments you're interested in. And yeah, I just sent in JPL.com resumes. I sent in my resume and just heard back from them a few months later.
A few months.
Yeah,
it
a long
sounds like
time.
a long period, like when you were thinking, oh, I'm not going to get in.
Yeah, I mean, they got back to me maybe like March or April, and I had already kind of had things figured out, so I thought. But
and what was on your CV? Because usually when you apply online without any referrals, just your CV gets thrown away like a black hole which absorbs it and never comes back.
Yeah, so I have two versions of my resume. I have like a practical resume, which is like, you know, boom, 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 here's what I do. And then I kind of have a crazier resume, which is like designed to stand out. Because, you know, when they're going through your resumes, I think it's like they take like 5 seconds per resume to look at. So if your resume looks like all the other ones, it just immediately like almost consider it thrown out. So I guess the unique thing about my resume is I have like a graphic on it that's a timeline of all the projects I've worked on and all the skills I picked up and when. And then that's like delved into more, I guess. Yeah.
And did you have any experience which set you apart from the others, or any unusual things that were written there?
Yeah, I think the things that were interesting to them was that I did astronomy research in high school. So like if you ever have a chance to pursue research, even like in high school, like take it. Like it definitely helped further me and give me tools to like be able to do something like this. And I guess the second thing is my past job experiences. I did things similar to what I'm doing this summer. Oh,
okay. So you've already had industry experience. You did other internships, or were you working full time during college?
Yeah, I just did internships over the summer at like a local engineering firm. So nothing too big or too fancy, but you know, it's just like about learning the skills you need to take yourself further, even if it's just doing a small job.
Okay, so you just happen to have the skills needed for that, and you made the resume who stand out from all the others. Yeah.
Landscape.
Oh, landscape.
So like sideways resume.
Oh, really?
Nobody ever gets those.
Okay, and I think this is a risky thing, but if you get a recruiter to move his head like in a landscape,
they were like, what's this?
Then I guess it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, and what how was your reaction when you got the interview, or what was the process? So you sent it, you heard back from them, and then?
Yep. So they emailed me and they said they were going to have a phone interview. And so they called me, and I didn't realize there were going to be like 5 or 6 other people on the other side of the line. So that was a little intimidating.
And could you see them, or was it like a video conference?
No, it was over the phone.
Oh, so you're just suddenly hearing another guy's voice?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's how phones work. So yeah, it was kind of weird because for interviews, typically, like I like to make eye contact and have that like connection, but it's kind of hard when you're on the phone with somebody. Like, imagine talking to me blind. It's kind of hard.
Probably it's like how astronauts are in space.
Yeah.
Okay, and what did they ask you, or how was the interview? If you can tell me, if it's confidential, that's fine.
Yeah, honestly, it was one of the more casual interviews that I've had. It was more asking about like details of my resume, like my past skills, personality things. It wasn't like super technical. So.
What's an example of a personality question?
I can't really think of one on the spot.
Because usually when you apply, or at least classic Google, Microsoft, Facebook, you just get, oh, hello, I'm engineer X, I work on this kind of product, and here's a coding question. Now let's go to the Google Doc. Have you understand it? Okay, then let's discuss it. And at the end, you get to ask some question, and that's it. Basically, it's like 80 or 90% just writing code.
Right. Yeah. No, it wasn't really like that at all. It was more like, tell us about your past job experiences. What is this on your resume?
Okay.
Why do you want to work here? That kind of thing. And I think I was way too enthusiastic about that question, so that probably helped.
So I have a friend who told me when I was first applying for internships to also prepare some kind of short stories for every possible questions, like why do you want to work here? Why, or not prepare stories, but just have ideas in mind.
Yeah.
And about past work experience, and have like, what's the biggest challenge? Have you done that, or are you just spontaneous?
Oh, I can't do spontaneous, like when it comes to interviews especially. So I had like, since it was over the phone, they couldn't see me, so I could cheat as much as I wanted. So I had like 8 sheets laid out with my whole life story. And I kind of just planned for whatever they would ask me. Okay,
yeah, that's a great thing. So I don't believe in just being good and showing up at the interviews. I think that you have to prepare.
You definitely have to, because especially me, I get really nervous, as a lot of people do during interviews. So it's nice to kind of know offhand, like, what am I going to say? Like, if they ask about a specific experience, like, boom, I have 3 examples right here.
Yeah. Okay, so afterwards, were there any other interviews, or that was it?
That was it, and then I also had to send them a coding sample.
Okay, a coding sample on a problem they gave you?
Nope, they just said whatever you want to send us, and...
And what did you send?
My robot code.
Your robot code, okay. If I had to send like some personal code I've written, I would be concerned, because usually when I do projects for myself, I just code it as fast as possible and get it
No
out.
comments.
Yeah, if it's a personal project, I don't use comments. Yeah. It's like write once and...
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, but yeah, so I have a project in which I work on with multiple people, and I do comments. I'm not a horrible person, so... Yeah. All right, and then the internship started. Can you share about some general ideas, because I assume that there's a lot of confidential things about what are you doing there?
Yeah, so just like about what I'm doing?
Yes, or about NASA, or some interesting things.
Yeah, so the Jet Propulsion Lab is like one of the coolest places in my opinion, because there are so many, it's like a mini college campus. So I think about 6,000 people work there.
6,000, okay.
And there's just like, there's over 100 buildings, but some of them have been knocked down at this point, so I'm not exactly sure. But kind of what they say is if you walk each building in numerical order, because the buildings are out of order, it's 56 miles. Okay. So it's a huge place, and like each building has different things. Like you've got mission control rooms, and that's my favorite place to go. And you have like rooms where they test the rovers. You have the room where they're building Mars 2020, and you can go check it out during your lunch break. It's just like, to me, it's the coolest place to work.
Okay. and you can just walk there and see some rovers in a huge warehouse which just drive around on their own.
Yeah, I mean, there's something called the Mars Yard where they take the rovers out and they'll it's got all sorts of terrain, and they'll like practice different like suspensions or whatnot on there. And yeah, for the most part, like if you're in JPL, you can walk around and see anything. That's not private.
Yeah. Well, if I worked there, I wouldn't do my work, just walk around and see everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool place to work also because they offer like lectures, 2 or 3 a week, and all sorts of people come and just talk about what they're working on, whether it's in NASA or outside of NASA, and it's a real learning experience.
Yeah, it sounds cool. And what's your specific project, or which part of the?
Yeah, so I'm working on the Mars Curiosity rover team. So the Curiosity rover is up on Mars right now, and its goal is to kind of just collect different data, and it's got a drill, so it tries to drill in different terrains and get samples.
And it discovered life on Mars.
And maybe discover life on Mars. That's being debated.
Oh, it's being debated because on the news said, it's just discovered organic.
Yeah, I think different people have different ideas of what life is. So I mean, I just went to a talk last week where a guy was totally discrediting that, but there are also tons of people who think that it's building blocks for life. And I'm not a biologist, so I'm not going to comment.
And were you at NASA when it happened?
No, I got there right after. And it doesn't really impact what I do because I'm more on the software development side. But it's kind of cool to, just because it's part of working on the mission. Everyone's like super attached to the robot or the rover. It's pretty cute.
And what were some challenges that you occurred? Was it more challenging than the other workplaces?
No, honestly, I'd say it's about the same. I was really nervous when I first started that I wouldn't be able to like meet the expectations. But so far, like everything is laid out. Like it's a 10-week plan, so every week you have goals to meet, and if you don't meet them, I don't know what happens because I've met them all so far.
Yeah, congrats.
Thanks. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I feel like I'm given a little bit of freedom to kind of explore my ideas. Like if I have a new idea, I could just run it past my mentor, and she'll say, "Yeah, that's great," and then I'll just run with it.
So it's also research oriented. You're not getting the regular software engineering job where, here's a service, you have to implement this is the APIs, or you discuss the APIs and that's it.
I wouldn't call it like research oriented per se, but definitely like with the code I'm working with, I mean, I'm creating a wrapper for a library that exists, and there's a lot of creative expression that goes with it, and they're kind of leaving up some things to me like, how do you want to do this? And like I might look at like the Mars data and say like, how does this work with what we have?
Okay, and what do you think, accepting the office and being at NASA? What do you think it's the one thing which is a lot different than the other jobs you worked at?
I guess just like I feel like everyone's excited all the time. I really like that.
I'd be excited if I work on.
Right.
Yeah.
I like coming to work every day and everyone's just like, everyone is working on a different project, and you'll go out to lunch with people and they'll be like, here's, like they'll be talking about their missions, or there's all sorts of people and they're all really smart and all working on different things. So it's really cool.
Yeah. And are they all programmers?
No. So I think like 4,000 are engineers, and then 2,000 are other, like business, IT, marketing, that kind of thing. And of the programmers,
why do they use marketing, or how do they use it?
I guess like if they have a huge event, like JPL sometimes has events or something, they'll like have a marketing team to throw it together.
Okay.
And I guess I didn't mean 4,000 engineers, 4,000 like science/engineers. So like I'd say a lot of them are like biologists. Like a lot of people, what I didn't realize before coming here is like even all of the missions, there's so many biologists working on them because you can't have any bacteria on anything.
Okay, yeah.
So there's a lot of sciencey people.
Yeah, because if you have 1 millimeter of deviation, then you won't send a rocket to the moon. You'll send it to just
Yeah, you can't have
space.
any bacteria on like the spacecraft. So there's so many people, like even just biologists, and a lot of people who are studying like more of the rocks and yeah.
For me as a regular software engineer, I wouldn't talk about that. You just assemble the parts together, you just make sure that everything is put perfectly, and that's it, you send it to space. But
no, you meet lots of interesting people.
One thing I always tell my students, just write the code as if you were on an airplane, which would run on your code on autopilot, and the smallest mistake will maybe do something wrong. But I think I should adapt that and tell them, it's like when you're on a spaceship, and if it's 1 millimeter to the left or to the right or up or down, you won't end up anywhere. You'll just be lost in space.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, do you have like stricter test cases in the software part, or how do you ensure that the code you're writing is working well?
So I've been doing a lot of error handling with my code because a lot of it's already written, and now it's just kind of testing, turning it into a user interface. But I actually have one or two other people who are actually using my code to create what are called like mosaics, like panoramas, because that's what the code actually is doing. It's taking images from the rover. So the rover takes 360 images, so it'll take like pictures here, and it's got two eyes, like left eye and right eye, and it'll take that in 360 view, and then my code will stitch together the images to make a panorama. But a lot goes into that because you have to stitch together the image, and then you have to do brightness corrections. And because there's a left eye and a right eye, what you can do is you can overlay them and make an anaglyph, like a 3D image. And then the scientists have to use that to plan where the rover is going to go next. And I'd be like, that rock is jutting out. We shouldn't go there. So with that said, that was like a long field. But other people will run my code to create the anaglyphs, the 3D images, and just make sure it's running smoothly. And sometimes I find bugs and have to deal with that. But it's just like a day-to-day thing, I guess.
Yeah. You were saying that you work on the rover who has like 2 cameras, which is like twice, and I just remember that when I did my first internship, I was also working on stereo, and that was when I just found out why we do have 2 eyes, because if you have a finger in front of your eyes and you close the one eye and then the other, it moves like much more than if you hold it farther away, and that's how you can create a 3D mapping of everything around. All right, and you were saying about Mars 2020. What's that? Can you share more information about what it is for the people who don't know?
So Mars 2020 is being built right now, and it's going to be launched in 2020. But it's going to be like a way better rover than Curiosity. Sadly, I love you, Curiosity. But, it's going to have way higher resolution cameras, because actually the Curiosity cameras aren't the highest resolution. So these cameras are going to be fantastic, and we're going to get awesome images. And it's also going to have like this huge drill, I think. And it's just going to be landed on Mars, and it's going to go on a journey. And I don't actually even know the time limit. Like I don't even know how long the mission's supposed to run. I'm sure if you Google it, you can find it. But so it's going to be pretty awesome. So just got to wait 2 more years.
Okay, and one more off-topic question for people who are not into space. Why do you think space travel is so important? Why do you think it's crucial? So there are a lot of people who are saying, we shouldn't invest in space. We have a lot of problems here on Earth. Why don't we invest more energy into that?
Right. I think it's all about pushing the boundaries of our knowledge, right? Because if we just confine ourselves to this bubble around Earth, I mean, that's so small if you look at the grand scheme of like how big the universe really is. Like we're just a speck of dust, not even. Our galaxy is a speck of dust.
Yeah.
And there's so much out there to explore and that we need to kind of know about, even just in our own solar system or looking beyond it at exoplanets, or just even kind of getting the idea if there's life out there. Because I think there's something like on the order of 200 billion galaxies. So it's just like a lot of galaxies. And each galaxy supports a certain number of planets that might have life. So when you think about that, it's like it's pretty incredible how much there really is to explore.
Yeah, I remember reading Isaac Asimov's Foundation about planets where you can live, and that inspired me a lot. Another thing which inspired me into space was reading about SpaceX and what was the reason behind putting a man on Mars, because they said that, yeah, there's a small chance that an asteroid would hit Earth, but even if it hits, then all the millions of years of evolution is all gone, because the asteroid will destroy us, and the chances are a lot smaller if you're on two planets.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah. And when do you think we'll have, being an insider, if you can tell us that, when do you think we'll have people on Mars?
Honestly, I have no idea. I don't know. I feel like it might happen in our lifetime, though.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. It's pretty weird to think about that. That could happen, but I think it will.
Okay. Yeah. Let's get back to you being at NASA. What are the steps you can pursue in order to work full time, and also do you want to work there full time?
Yeah. So right now I'm just an intern, but yeah, I would love to work there full time. I guess kind of what I'm trying to follow is just do a good job, and just trying to get to know the people around you. I think that's important at any job. And yeah, I mean, if you have a particular interest in something, you chase it. So like, especially in NASA, there's so many different divisions. You could easily go say like, hey, I'd rather be doing like biology, or I'd rather be doing robotics. Like if you're interested in that, like you can reach out to those people and find out. And that's whatever you're doing.
Yeah, that's cool. So you have an open culture.
Yeah.
So if you do a good job, you'll just get a full-time offer, and you just have to finish the university, or do you need a master's degree or PhD, or how does it work?
So I think what I heard is that at JPL it's kind of a third. So a third of people have bachelor's, third master's, and third PhD. So I do think that they hire people with bachelor's, and you can get your master's while working there. Whatever path you choose.
And let's go to more general questions about coding now. What would you recommend to a viewer who just hears your interview and he wants to work for NASA? What are the advices? What can people who are not into coding yet, what can they do? Do you have to be a genius, or can you work your way and become smarter?
No, you don't have to be a genius. There are a lot of ways I think you can improve your coding. Even just doing personal projects. Like if you see something that you think can be done better, just do it. Like the other day I was on the planetary science database, and I was looking at all these Mars images, and I thought, wow, if I knew how to code VR, I could download these images and make like a 360 panorama. But I don't know how to do VR, but like I could, like that could be a personal project I could do. You never be like afraid of like, oh, I don't know how to do something. It's more like, I can learn this, and how do I get to the end goal? If you're interested in kind of like embedded programming, which is kind of what I was talking about before, the MSP 432 board is a good place to start.
MSP?
Yep.
MSP, I forgot. We'll drop a link in the description.
And if you're kind of interested, because I'm pretty interested in coding with robotics mostly, but I'm also interested in tons of other coding. But another cool project that just became available is called Open Source Rover, and it's up on GitHub, and it has all the code. It's in Python, and it's got all of the hardware you need to buy, and you can build your own mini Curiosity rover.
Oh, that's so cool.
It is so cool. It's very expensive, so I hope you have funding. But there's also a mini version called, I think it's called Swampy, or Swampy. Let's say Swampy. And it's like a little robot you can build, and it's open source. So like a lot of times I think you can just find even open source libraries with somebody else's code that you can play with. Or you could try to write your own, or solve your own problem.
So to sum this up, your main advice for someone who wants to work at NASA, just build personal projects, get your hands dirty, write code, get hardware, and learn as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, just find a problem and solve it, and just do what you love. As long as you're excited about what you're doing, you can't really go wrong. If you're building like code to automate something that you're interested in that nobody else cares about, it's still one step closer in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And speaking of side projects, you have some side projects you're working on and you want to share with people who are watching? What were some side projects that you think it helped you advance a lot in your career?
So a lot of side projects that I did kind of while in school more involved like the MSP 432 or this other board that I worked with. I think it was an Altera board. And I like coding on like FPGA boards specifically. So I kind of built like a little video game using an FPGA, like Guitar Hero, like on an old computer. And right now I'm trying to get funding to build the open source rover.
Okay. Do you have like a Kickstarter or?
Not yet. I have a small team of people and we're going to start raising money because it's a project we're going to start in a few months. And that's one of our big project ideas, but we're also have other ideas, so we're trying to pick an idea. Okay,
yeah, and definitely send me a link because I'll share it. Right now we don't have a lot of subscribers, but hopefully until you get it out, we'll get more. Yeah, and it's an interesting thing. And yeah, if you have any interesting things, please send it to me and I'll drop everything in the description. And yeah, I think, do I want to ask you anything else? Alright, I'm afraid I will miss something important. Personal projects. Okay, another question. So what would you advise someone who's already into coding, already has some experience in order to advance? What were some mindset shifts that you did and which helped you a lot become better?
Yeah, so like you mean advance in coding or just advance in a job?
Coding, maybe a job, whatever you think it's important.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say the biggest thing always is don't be discouraged. Like even when something isn't working, just like always come back to it. Like always finish a project. I used to never finish projects because they got too hard, but always finish whatever you're working on and don't be afraid. Like don't be afraid to do something bigger than what you think you're capable of. Don't be afraid to apply for something that you think you're bigger than, or that's bigger than you. Because if you really try hard and you're dedicated, like you can pretty much accomplish anything that you want.
Yeah, I strongly encourage that. When I first applied at Google, I was rejected, and I was rejected to a lot of companies, not just Google. And I trained for a whole 1 year, and afterwards I got accepted at every company which I applied to. So I feel it's more like an iterative process. First time you fail, then maybe you fail again, but you fail by a smaller margin, and at some point just cross the line and you get
exactly.
You get it.
Yeah, like you don't be afraid to fail because every time you fail, you learn something, and it just builds your character, makes you stronger. You just have to, I guess, be confident in your abilities and what you can do.
Okay, thanks a lot for the inspiring advices. Until next time, don't forget to hit the like button for this interesting video. This way it will reach a lot more people and you'll help us create better content. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel because there will be a lot more interviews coming. And until next time, I wish you all the best. I hope you'll start working on your projects or improve them if you are already working on those. And I wish you all the best.